Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Halena from PETRONAS, and welcome to today's panel discussion on a very exciting topic, the future of refining, scaling low carbon fuel for decarbonization. So as we all know, the path to decarbonize is not just a journey for us in the energy industry. It is a global mission for all of us. And while the task may seem daunting, as Albert Einstein once said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. So it is indeed a golden era for the energy industry as we look for innovative, scalable, yet pragmatic solutions to decarbonize. So please join me to welcome our two outstanding panelists for today who will bring the unique perspective from different corners of the energy transition. And before we go further, I would like them to invite them to introduce themselves. Maybe we'll start with Azrul and then Samantha.
Sure. All right. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Azrul. I've been with PETRONAS for just under 29 years now. Uh, been around, did various roles in my career with PETRONAS, and at the moment, since 1st January 2020, I head the domestic marketing arm, where we sell all the fuel and hydrocarbon products within Malaysian boundaries.
Okay, I'm not working for Petronas. I'm heading the business development from Ineratec, which is a German company. We are in the portfolio of PIVA, so now working actively with Petronas. Ineratec is producing synthetic fuels based on green hydrogen and CO2, so we can replace one-to-one fossil fuels in the hard-to-abate sectors, also in the transport area, aviation, long haul, automotive, and maritime. But I can tell a little bit more later.
Okay, welcome both of you, and thank you for being here. So maybe we'll get the ball rolling. Let's start the first question. Maybe I'll begin with Azrul. Petronas recently had announced the final investment decision to proceed with the investment of a biorefinery to produce SAF and HVO. So in the backdrop of many project cancellation, postponement, arising from mixed demand signals, as well as very challenging project economics, in your view, what are the key success factors for us to scale low carbon fuel, making it a reality?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I resonate with a lot of the comments made in the last day or two, what we've heard from many of the panelists that have spoken. I think as a cornerstone of any project, it has to be centered on profitability as well. It cannot be any kind of investment that is really short-term in nature, because that would not make reinvestments as well as getting the financial means, borrowings, etc., to work. So that has to be the first cornerstone of any project or investment. And I think from a bigger perspective for any organization in this day and age, you do need to spread and put your eggs in more than one basket. And I think as far as a portfolio perspective, one could say it is, a bit of a risk in terms of investing in something that's relatively new and untested compared to the traditional fuels. But you need to take a step back and ask, is it not also equally risky in not investing in some of this portfolio diversification? And I think it is about energy addition rather than just a pure full transition. I think we've heard it loud and clear, and I completely agree and resonate that the world needs more energy as we want to go into stepping up into the prosperity ladder, especially where Malaysia is. We are still, having a long way up to go into the economic development. And I think having more arsenal of making Petronas an energy superstore is in the step of right direction. So therefore, it is absolutely paramount that we continue to invest in certain fields and areas. And I think SAF and the biorefinery is one of those examples of a good diversification in order to meet the demands of the future.
Thank you, Azrul. Maybe picking up from the statement just now that you have picked up from the past sessions that we heard at CERAWeek. Everybody has been saying about pragmatic approach, and we've noticed that there's a marked difference, the price gap between the current gray molecule to bio or even green. Yeah. So do you see a place for low carbon fuels moving, beyond the traditional market that we know of, like, Europe or Asia, or now that, perhaps that energy transition have to take a step back kind of thing because energy security is more important. So how do we replicate that demand, not just for a specific region or specific country, but, drive it as a global demand? This, Samantha.
So this is a big question because there are a lot of elements to explain. I think, yes, nowadays we are questioning, okay, energy transition, how are we going to finance this, etc. They are because of some geopolitical reasons. In some region, they are kind of stepping back and they said we need a energy security before energy transition. I don't think it's less important. I think that the energy transition and also investing in sustainable fuels can be also a way to become independent and to reduce import of fuels. Some regions who are depending on imports, they are seeing the potential of producing fuels themselves. And the advantage, for example, with sustainable fuels, so biofuels, but also e-fuels, and I can talk for e-fuels particularly because this is our core business, I can install my production everywhere where I get my feedstock. So everywhere I get green hydrogen, well, water basically, and CO2. And then I can produce, yeah? So it's quite flexible. And of course, the price is at the moment a big factor. Is always how to finance it. I will tell you, I don't believe in price parity, and we will not reach it by 2030. So this is an illusion. And I think this is the time not only to focus on levelized cost of production, we need to be creative. We need to think innovative business models. And there is a way how you can manage to sell your expensive fuels, but to find claiming models that the customers can be enlightened, then we can co-finance the green premium. And I think we should work on that. And that's where we are very active at Ineratec at the moment, finding ways, interesting business case, business models, cooperation, strategic partnerships, and then we can manage to do so. So, for example, we are producing different type of products. So the synthetic fuels, we have, for example, waxes and crude, yeah? And the waxes have a very high market value. So we realized that you can also co-finance the green premium for SAF by getting or generating revenues with the other products of your production. So this is one way to co-finance it. So I think it's possible. We just have to be creative.
If I can just add to that, if it's okay, Halena, I think being in the last 5 years looking at the domestic marketing side, I have a bias towards looking outside in, as in understanding the customer's requirement first before necessarily producing and then deciding who your customers be. And I completely agree with Samantha there that I do see that there is a pattern of shift in demand. I think there are more people who are discerning and want differentiated offerings. Not to say that the traditional hydrocarbon and sources of energy are less important. It's just that the world is becoming more sophisticated and there are more diversification. Just like any products that you can think of. If you think about buying an automobile or a dress, there will be people who prefer this or preferring that. I think in Malaysia alone, what we've seen in the last few years, we've been experimenting with several customers, and there are customers who are willing to pay such premiums. But of course, quantities may not be big today. But just like anything else, once you start the ball rolling, your learning curve, you need to get onto that learning curve sooner rather than later, so that you can ride on to the ability on the cost curve to get lower and lower costs over time. It has to start somewhere. It's a question of, is it now? I mean, if it's not now, then when? So I believe, just like I said in the early part, large organizations do need to have an eye on that world as well and continue to develop markets. And I think as customers become more attuned to it, and I think you can have differentiated products and offerings where people are willing to pay a premium.
While you're holding the mic, Azrul, I mean, as captain of the industry, you've been navigating a lot of, I guess, as it challenges because of the changes of regulatory as well as policies that impacts the industry. So the regulations as of now is still in evolution, keeps on changing. Yeah. So how do you see policies, be it mandates, or certain regulation that will play a significant role to help us accelerate the scaling of low carbon fuels?
Yeah, I think, okay, and I think initially, yes, I do feel it's a little bit more governed, or would I say, there's a lot more perhaps threatening from a stick point of view rather than incentivizing from a carrot as an initial phase. I think as countries sign on obligations and commitments, I think there needs to be some form of or some level of regulation in order to jumpstart that trajectory of the business. But that's not sustainable in my opinion. I think over time we need to ensure that if the market is ready, and I think then the supply will come. Like I said, I'm always biased to looking from a demand perspective. Time will tell whether or not that will happen. But initial years, I think there will need to be some form of mandates and requirements, but that can only take you so far. And then we'll need to see when demand starts to pick up, whether it can stand on its own. Because if it's on a large scale without a commercial viability, I don't think that's sustainable long term anyway. So yes, policies do have a role, but I think overarching, in my opinion, the commercial viability still is the most important element to see whether this can be scaled.
I can only confirm what he's saying. So I think in Europe we are very good at developing regulations. Very good. We have a batch of people in Brussels. They spend the whole time developing regulations that are supposed to support the market ramp up of sustainable fuels. It's good. The problem is that in Europe we get over-regulated. So this is the problem. It's breaking everything on the other side. And I think, so I believe regulation is good. I believe also in the mandate, but I think it's not enough. It's exactly what you said. You need actually a combination of initiatives, markets, driven initiatives, but also policy, of course. So just to give you an example, in Europe, with the mandate, the fuel supplier, if they are not delivering a certain percentage of sustainable fuels by a certain time, they have to pay very high penalties. So, when we got the price for the new penalties? Last week. And since when do we have the regulation? Couple of years, right? So things are moving, but slowly. So now we have a kind of price reference where you can play with, and also this should support to build up the market. But I think we need also financing mechanism, because the problem is that the supplier, of course, if they are not delivering, supplying, let's say it's 2% by next year, they get the penalties. But the problem is that they don't get they don't get to FID. And there is a need also for financial initiatives supporting this. So it's not only regulations or market players. We need a combination. We need a cooperation of all stakeholders along the value chain, and then we can manage to do so. So just to give you an example, the carbon contracts for difference, great initiative from Brussels. The countries have the liberty to apply it. So in Germany, they did so. And I was hoping that this program would finance the green premium of the fuels. But finally they said, no, we are going to use this money actually to finance big industry, so the hard to abate sectors, to decarbonize the steel industry, etc. For the fuels you have the mandate. That was the answer from Brussels, and I said, okay, thank you very much. I understand. So it's just to explain you a little bit sometimes that regulation is good, but until a certain point. So we need a combination of different stuff. Yeah.
Thank you, Samantha. I guess I want to build from your statement just now about financing, because we know all this require a big amount of money to make it happen. So when we talk about securing that funding, you're standing in a room full of venture capitalists, trying to convince them that, the technology that you're developing is the next big thing. So what do you think the investors need to be convinced of, that this is actually the way to go? They want to go ahead with the investment so that they could help you scale the low carbon fuel technology.
Well, I think this is something you hear at every conference. I heard it here: long-term agreements, long-term agreements for your offtake, long-term agreements for your feedstock, combine different source of feedstock, always have a plan B. You need to de-risk your project, etc., etc. So yes, I think here also we need a cooperation between the private investors and public money. A very nice examples in Europe. So we are doing quite a lot of things too. Breakthrough Catalyst joined forces with the European Commission and the European Investment Bank, and this is an amazing thing. We have just secured 70 million euros now to invest in an upgrading module in our plant in Frankfurt to produce SAF. So beginning of 26, the first drops of SAF are coming out in Germany. So I'm very proud of this. But this is amazing because this is a combination of public and private money. And I think we do need this. And by also getting public fund, this helps also to de-risk your project. For example, if the European Commission is investing in your project, this will of course raise some trust amongst the private investors. So this is one possibility. But still, you need to guarantee that your value chain, upstream and downstream, is secured with long-term agreement. And this is where the creativity plays a role. What I said, you need to find the right partners. Also, like you said, the right customers, the early adopters who are ready also to pay the green premium, and maybe also more corporate engagement, for sustainability topics, etc.
So I could hear that collaboration is actually key here. And I guess we all know that decarbonization won't happen without collaboration, not just between, energy industry, but everybody in the value chain, across many sectors. And it could just be between the traditional energy player, startups. How do you both see this collaboration as a key factor for us to help shape the future of low carbon fuel?
Okay, being more of a marketing commercial guy, my approach towards managing risk, and I think that's what we're essentially talking about here. The principle of diversification of partnership is also a risk management component. For example, you have technology partners, you have certain people who have jurisdiction, maybe some influence on policies, etc. You want to assign risk to the parties that can manage risks best. Then I think you'll be able to reduce that risk premium, and your hurdle rates for investments could be lowered over time. You can get better returns. So in this world, complex world, in global world, it's almost impossible to expect one entity or organization to be the captain or the leader in every single field in managing risk. So therefore, by nature, partnership is probably the single most crucial component in terms of managing risk. Especially when you're starting up something relatively new that the world hasn't picked up as mainstream. In doing so, I think sharing of that risk through strategic collaboration and partnerships becomes a critical success factor in jump-starting some of these initiatives. That's my view. What about you, Sam?
I think I would not have it said better. It's really like this, yeah. I really believe in collaboration because it's also not only on the financial level. I think we need to be technology agnostic. We need all technologies. We have a big challenge. The climate challenge is something really big. And like you said, we are not going to manage to do it on your own or with a batch of some companies. So we are all facing the same challenges. We need all the technologies. We need, well, all the money we can get, of course. Yeah, it's we need to be a community for it. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up today's conversation, I think it's safe to say that collaboration, investment, and of course, our commitment to scaling innovative low carbon solutions are key to achieving decarbonization in the coming decades. So the best way to predict the future is to create it. Yeah. So let's all work together towards creating that low carbon future that we all look forward to. But it's not just that. It's also a world that will be full of opportunity for us to innovate and collaborate. So thank you, Azrul, Samantha, for sharing your valuable insights and perspectives. And thank you everyone here that joined us today. And we look forward to continuing such wonderful conversation in Energy Asia 2025 in Kuala Lumpur and driving change together. Hope to see all of you in Kuala Lumpur soon and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.